The last time is now. John Cena will have his final match on Saturday night's main events in Washington, D.C. This should be taking place in Boston, but unfortunately TKO was too greedy. With his career officially ending, it's a good time to look back and reminisce on some of the best moments, matches, and memories of his legendary career. But it's better to look back on the legacy first, even though the title of the video says the opposite, career and legacy. I thought it'd be better to judge his legacy first because there are so many career highlights to talk about. Now, I'll be honest, the first thing that comes to mind whenever John Cena's legacy is mentioned is that great video package that the WWE produced for his match with Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30. That was such an amazing video package, so well done. But when you judge his overall legacy, it's one of being the standard bearer of the WWE. He once cut a promo in which he said he was the measuring stick in which all future stars would be compared to, and he was right. Nobody has ever represented the company better than John Cena. There's never been a better spokesperson for the WWE than him. For 10 years, from 2005 to 2015, he was the face of the company. When compared to other top guys, nobody carried himself with as much class and respect than John Cena. One only has to look at his involvement with Make-A-Wish. That's not to say others haven't been involved. I believe Hulk Hogan is second to Cena in terms of the amount of wishes he's granted, but John Cena's tally is untouchable, and he's vowed to keep going post-retirement. That's a true hero. He always showed up to work with a smile on his face, and he was the ultimate company man. There's a reason why I think Vince McMahon appreciates him a little bit more than some of the other top guys. One match. This is a single match. In my opinion, you might think this is a little strange, but I believe this defines his legacy in the WWE. It's the infamous squash match against Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2014. No other top guy would ever even consider letting himself get squashed like that. Could you ever imagine Hulk Hogan or Stone Cold Steve Austin agreeing to that? Oh, hell no. But John Cena did. He always did right by the company, and to be honest, that's why I've been very frustrated by how his final run has been booked, because he deserves so much better. He always put the WWE first. I recall an interview in which John Cena was asked about the material he was given and how he'd always, no matter what, he would try to make the best of it, even though some of the material was pretty bad. Recently, he revealed that WWE wanted Saturday night's main event to be a full 2-hour tribute show for him, but he pushed for the spotlight to also go to the NXT talents, and it was his way of giving back to the business. John Cena's loyalty to the WWE is unmatched. That's his legacy. In addition, he also happened to have one of the most decorated careers in the history of the WWE. There's obviously a lot to talk about, so I decided to narrow it down to my favorite matches, rivalries, promos, moments, and memories. Let's start at the beginning, when he debuted on an episode of SmackDown in 2002. Kurt Angle was out to start the show, and he was doing almost like an open challenge, and the guy who answered his challenge was someone named John Cena. He came out in green trunks, I remember that, and he announced his name, John Cena, and Kurt asks him a question, and Cena says, "Ruthless aggression," and he slaps Kurt Angle in the mouth really hard, and they went on to have a very competitive match. I assumed Kurt was just going to squash him, but Cena got a lot of offense in, a lot more than I was expecting, and I'm just a kid, so I really don't understand it too much at that time, but I realized that they were going to do something with him, especially after he loses the match to Kurt, They go backstage, and a lot of the wrestlers are giving him props, and one in particular was The Undertaker, who kind of almost really like puts him over for his match, and he's giving him a lot of credit. So right then and there, if they have The Undertaker doing that, you know that they're gonna push this guy. He is gonna be someone. Now, unfortunately, after that, his career didn't necessarily pan out the way they expected. They were actually going to release John Cena by the end of 2002, and they're doing a European tour. This is near the end of the year. Cena's expecting to be let go. He was told he'd be on the list of the people released, and they're on a tour bus, and a lot of the wrestlers begin freestyle rapping to kill time or something. John Cena does it, and everyone is impressed. He's great. One person who overheard him rapping was Stephanie McMahon, who at the time was the head writer of SmackDown, I believe. Stephanie talks to John about it, and he's told the story in interviews. She asks him to do a freestyle rap, and she was so impressed that she asked him, "How would you like to do that on TV?" And Cena, of course, enthusiastically says yes. And the rest is history, basically. That's how the Doctor of Thugonomics was born. Word life, basic thugonomics. Some of his raps, his disses on The Big Show, Rikishi, Carlito, Chris Jericho, and Kurt Angle were all very memorable to me. Then he released a 2005 album called You Can't See Me. I was very young at that time, and I really wanted to buy the CD. I got my parents to buy it for me, and I'd listen to it all the time. I don't usually tell personal stories, but I had to tell this. So, we had a project in the 4th grade of school in which we would choose our favorite musician and do a slideshow presentation on them. A lot of the kids chose more of the mainstream bands you would think of. One chose Queen, I think another one chose Metallica. I decided to do my project on John Cena, and the teacher had no idea who he was. He didn't watch wrestling, and I played some of the rap songs, and the whole thing was on him. That's how big of a fan I was. I really liked John Cena, and I was a huge wrestling fan. So eventually, John Cena, in 2005, he'd go on to win the WWE Championship, his first one, at WrestleMania 21 from JBL. And then, later after that, after the feud with JBL, he begins to feud with Chris Jericho, and that's when the fans begin to first turn on him. The Cena hate really went into full steam after he won the WWE Championship back from Edge after only a few weeks. When Edge first cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, that was the first ever cash in, to win the title from John Cena after an Elimination Chamber match. Cena wins it back a few weeks later at the Rumble, and that's really where I think the fans begin to really turn on him. And they really hated John Cena at WrestleMania 22. It was actually the night before at the Hall of Fame was when they started to scream "F you, Cena." They really didn't like him at that time, especially in Chicago. And he even talked about it on an episode of Raw during a segment called Piper's Pit, hosted by, of course, Rowdy Roddy Piper. And he actually mentioned that. I looked it up, and I didn't realize how bad it was. It got me to remember how much hate there was for John Cena, especially on the internet at that time. The peak of the Cena hate was at ECW One Night Stand 2, during his match with Rob Van Dam, in which he defended the WWE Championship. He lost that match, and there was the infamous sign, "If Cena wins, we riot." Yeah, I think they might have been telling the truth that night. Looking back at that match, it's remarkable how John Cena was able to keep his composure. They chanted everything under the sun, every curse word you can ever think of, every slur. They even threw toilet paper on him. But still, throughout the course of the match, he kept his cool and performed like the ultimate professional. They couldn't break him. Nobody else can do that. The Cena hate carried into 2007. He really carried the company on his back that year, especially on Raw. That was not the best year for WWE. And then he gives up the title after he tore his pectoral muscle. Then later, at that time, we assumed he's past WrestleMania. But he made a surprise return in 2008 at the Royal Rumble in New York City at Madison Square Garden. He came out as number 30 and got what I still consider maybe the biggest pop of his career. It's one of the biggest pops ever, period. It was an insanely loud pop. Some of the guys he feuded with during this time period, I'm talking around 06 to 2010, was with Edge. They traded the belt back a million times, I remember that. Randy Orton, who I consider to be his best rival. They had so many matches with each other. He also feuded with Big Show, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. He had the WrestleMania 23 match with Shawn. And Batista, who I think was one of his most underrated rivals. There was the feud with the Nexus in 2010. He really should have lost that match at SummerSlam that year. And then the next year he had that great feud with CM Punk. After Punk cut the pipe bomb promo in 2011, they went on to have what I believe to be the best match of both of their careers. John Cena, in my opinion, has never had a better match than the one with CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011, and the same thing applies for CM Punk's career. John Cena actually chose to improve in the ring when he really didn't have to. There's no way he would have had a match like he did with the one against Punk in Chicago in the year 2006. John Cena as a wrestler in the 2010s was so much better than he was in the 2000s. The feud with Punk was perhaps his most critically acclaimed. However, his most financially successful feud of all time was against Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Cena initially sparked the feud when he'd take shots at The Rock in numerous interviews because The Rock was kind of away from WWE. He would never make appearances. The Rock responded by burying the Marine when he was supposed to be inducting his father and grandfather during the 2008 WWE Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Eventually, The Rock came back in 2011 and he hosted WrestleMania 27, even though the main event of that show was officially The Miz defending the WWE Championship against John Cena. The show was really built around The Rock against John Cena. The next night on Raw, after The Rock actually costed John Cena the match, the main event of WrestleMania 28 was official. They announced it a year in advance. The Rock versus John Cena. The first and only time the main event of WrestleMania has ever been announced a year in advance. During the build-up, and this surprised a lot of us, John Cena really got the better of The Rock on the microphone, which we were not expecting at all. Nobody I thought was ever better on the mic than The Rock. But John Cena, he got the better of him. And there was the infamous promo when Cena called out The Rock for writing his promo on his arm, and The Rock was heated after that. He was pissed off. Cena explained that he was only trying to build interest for the match, and he actually apologized to The Rock after they had their match. Eventually the match happens, WrestleMania 28, and it was the biggest WrestleMania of all time in terms of pay-per-view buy rates. It was marketed officially as once in a lifetime, but it didn't quite happen. It certainly happened more than once. So, the next month, Cena had a match with the returning Brock Lesnar at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. He actually won that match, but not before taking the biggest beating of his career up until his next match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2 years later. 2012 was presented as the downfall of John Cena, until he won the Royal Rumble the next year in 2013, setting up a rematch with The Rock at WrestleMania 29, in which he won. He won the WWE Championship, and that was the end of the feud. They shook hands and embraced afterwards. After that, he would, I think he feuded with Mark Henry. There was that crazy fake retirement segment on Raw. He had the feud with Daniel Bryan. He lost the belt to him at SummerSlam, and then he was gone for a while. He had the elbow injury. I remember him having a series of 1,000 matches against Randy Orton, and you know what? They just ran that match back too many times, and the fans got sick of it. I mean, he's, of all the top guys, he's had to have had more matches with Randy than anyone, and I think that's who his career is mostly connected to. I think people would view, whenever you think about John Cena, who his greatest rival ever was, I think most people would consider it to be Randy Orton. because they had so many matches together, and they both came in around at the same time. He also had a very memorable feud with Bray Wyatt. He had feuds with Seth Rollins, Rusev at WrestleMania 31, and he then introduced the U.S. Open Challenge. Kevin Owens was the first, he wasn't the first, actually, he was the most memorable opponent John Cena had during that time period. He debuted, and John Cena actually put him over in their first match. Other opponents were Sami Zayn, who blew out his shoulder, Neville, Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, and others. After that ended, to be honest, after he lost the U.S. title, his spot as the top guy was over. It lasted from 2005 to 2015. Roman Reigns was officially that guy at that time. He really became the guy. And I think a big mistake WWE made with Roman Reigns, not just pushing him as a babyface, was they refused to turn Roman heel because they never turned Cena heel. There was always the demand to turn him heel, but he did such a good job, and he really played into the polarization. So it was a thing where he'd never get fazed by the boos. It didn't work out so well with Roman. I think they made a huge mistake. Roman really didn't get to become the top guy in terms of his potential until he turned heel and became the tribal chief. He had a tremendous feud John Cena did with AJ Styles in 2016, arguably having the best series of matches of his career. Cena had a particular, in terms of a particular wrestler in a short period of time, I'm not sure he's ever had better matches than the series with AJ. They were all great. The SummerSlam match and the Royal Rumble match were both tremendous matches. Another big focus of John Cena during this time period was his relationship with Nikki Bella. He was prominently featured on Total Divas and then Total Bellas, where he almost developed this heel character on that show with these bizarre host rules. This was used in a feud with The Miz. For weeks, The Miz and Maurice would mock John Cena and Nikki Bella. They'd always bring up how John would never give her a ring, and then John Cena responded on an episode of SmackDown. This was the go-home show to WrestleMania 33, and he absolutely eviscerated. He eviscerated The Miz and Maurice on the mic, especially Maurice. He went all in on her. He read both of them apart on the mic. It was brutal. And he was waiting to get back at them, you can tell. And man, it was so memorable what he was saying to them. Then they had the mixed tag team match at WrestleMania 33. John and Nikki win. They beat Miz and Maurice. And then after the match, John Cena, in the middle of the ring, proposes to Nikki Bella at the Ultimate Thrill Ride WrestleMania. Unfortunately, they broke up a year later and they never got married, but still, that's such a nice, wholesome moment. Later that year, John Cena would feud with Roman Reigns. They had a very memorable segment on Raw in which John Cena just wrecked him on the mic. There was the infamous line, "I'm still here because you can't do your job," and the fans gasped when they heard it. They thought, oh, that's such a sick burn. And they had a WrestleMania match at No Mercy that year. An incredibly funny part of the match, I think the fans are chanting, "You both suck," or they're booing them both. So John Cena just decides to walk out, and the fans cheered. I just laughed my ass off. I thought that was so hilarious, how he would play into it, almost trolled the audience in a way. Eventually, Roman Reigns would win the match, and John Cena, he would raise Roman's arm in an endorsement, and from there on, he would kind of dip in and out of WWE TV. He was squashed by The Undertaker at WrestleMania 34 after he spent weeks burying him on the mic. Taker was actually upset about the match. He wanted it to go longer. He had the first match in Saudi Arabia with Triple H. He won that match, and from there on, he would just make sporadic appearances. There were years where he'd only show up I think there was a year where he never even showed up on WWE TV. You'd only get a few appearances from him at the most. He was busy with his acting career. He had The Peacemaker, which is a huge success, and he really moved on from WWE, it seemed like. He returned as the Doctor of Thugonomics at WrestleMania 35 when he interrupted the Elias concert. He was actually supposed to wrestle Elias at WrestleMania 36. Then the card got changed, and then he had, the pandemic happened, things changed, and he eventually was facing The Fiend Bray Wyatt in a Firefly Funhouse match. It turned out to be one of the most creative matches in history. When I first saw it, I had no idea what to make of it. Looking back, it was truly something else. It actually turned out to be Bray Wyatt's only WrestleMania victory. Well, I'm glad he put over Bray. I don't approve of some of the other guys he would put over. John Cena I thought was far too generous. He actually put over Austin Theory at WrestleMania 39. Look at him now. Too generous, to say the least. He started to make freak appearances on SmackDown during the Hollywood strike in 2023. He allowed Solo Sikoa to squash him in a match at Saudi Arabia, and I just thought that was absolutely bullshit. John didn't need to waste his time with that guy. Once again, look at him now. Look at Solo. John got his revenge on Solo when he stopped him from interfering in the main event of WrestleMania 40, helping Cody Rhodes fight off the Bloodline, becoming WWE Champion, beating Roman Reigns, finishing his story. And then his next appearance, he actually appeared on the next night on Raw. I think he teamed up with The Miz and R-Truth. But then the next major appearance was at Money in the Bank in 2024. It was a surprise appearance at a PLE. John Cena comes out and he announced that 2025 would be his final year. It would be a full calendar year and it would be a retirement tour. I made an entire video expressing my dismay at the way WWE booked John Cena's retirement tour. I felt it was a missed opportunity because they'll never get this chance again. He's never going to have another retirement tour. This is it. The last time was now. So they're never going to get a chance to do this again. And I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. He failed to win the Royal Rumble this past year. He was eliminated last by Jey Uso. And then he would turn heel at Elimination Chamber this year. And to be honest, even though I'm extremely disappointed at his heel turn, and even he is, I was glad that it happened because this was the biggest what if in WWE at that time. What would happen if they turned John Cena heel? Nobody thought they would ever do it, and I'm glad it at least happened. We at least got to see it, even though it didn't turn out to be good. It didn't turn out well afterwards. I'm still happy we got that moment. Everyone always talked about him doing the big turn. He would say in interviews it would never happen. I think John Cena's turning heel was almost like the Undertaker streak ending. Nobody ever expected it to happen, but both of them did. There were feuds where the heel would try to get him to turn heel. I remember in particular there was the embrace the hate during his feud with Kane. That's what Kane would always say to him. It was right before his match with The Rock, the first one in 2012. That was a pretty bad feud. That destroyed poor Zack Ryder. And then a couple years later, there was the feud with Bray Wyatt, in which Bray is trying to essentially get John Cena to turn heel. He even teased during turning heel during a promo with The Rock during the build-up to WrestleMania 29. So there's been numerous teases, but actually there was something funny. So after WrestleMania, the one when he beat The Rock, the next night on Raw, the fans don't like him. They're booing him, and he's kind of trolling him, and he's thinking of a new victory celebration to do, and he even does the heel turn, like he's turning his heel, and the fans all cheered. That was just a really good moment. That's a way John Cena can be really creative on the mic, and not like really break the fourth wall, but kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. John's really great at that. So it finally happens on March 1st, 2025. He turns on Cody Rhodes, aligning himself with The Rock and Travis Scott. He had the main event of WrestleMania this past year against Cody Rhodes, WrestleMania 41. Yeah. That was not a good match. Ruined by Travis Scott, who, look, I've ranted enough about this. I think I spent the whole year ranting about this. Please watch my video in which I criticize WWE on how they ruined his retirement tour. You can find it. I might even put it in the description. But Ugh, that thing was so bad. How they did that with Travis Scott, him taking an hour to walk down the entrance ramp. You know, after that horrible moment, it's still good he won the 17 title. He needed to. That was good, but yeah, I wish it was done in a better match, to say the least. But he had final duels during his heel run with Randy Orton, CM Punk, and even R-Truth, who he considers John Cena to be his childhood hero, even though R-Truth is older than John Cena. John Cena eventually turned back face. He dropped the belt to Cody Rhodes in an excellent main event of SummerSlam this past year, and I'm glad that he at least won number 17. That's the one good takeaway I can take from the heel turn. Obviously, it's kayfabe, but you know he's considered to be the GOAT, and everyone wanted to see him win number 17, and he finally got to do it. That's the only positive I can take away. Since turning back face, he had two great matches with Logan Paul and AJ Styles, respectively. Unfortunately, he got squashed by Brock Lesnar again this year. He made his final appearance in Boston last month when he won the Intercontinental Championship from Dominic Mysterio, making him a Grand Slam champion, further cementing his GOAT status. The next week, he made his final Raw appearance. The show took place in New York City at Madison Square Garden. Then he dropped the Intercontinental Championship at Survivor Series back to Dominic Mysterio, and this was his final match at a PLE. Now we're here. The last time is now. John Cena will wrestle his final match at Saturday night's main events, and I'm sure this is going to be a very emotional night. I wish he was retiring in Boston, but it is what it is. I got to witness John Cena's first match against Kurt Angle on a random episode of SmackDown in 2002. Now I'll get to witness his final match this Saturday as well. What an incredible run it's been. 23 years that were so much fun to watch. I got to witness his career as a kid, then to a teenager, then to a young adult, now to a fully grown man. It was so much fun to experience. I don't think it's going to hit me that he's gone as a wrestler until after the match is over, and then when the crowd really honors him by chanting "Thank you, Cena," giving him a standing ovation as he takes his final bow, if you will, and he leaves, and he walks past that curtain, and it's over. It's going to be something that it's going to happen, but it's going to be almost surreal to see it. It's really over. All I can say is thank you, John Cena, for the promos, the feuds, the matches, the moments, and the memories that shaped an entire generation of WWE fans. I'm particularly glad that I got to witness your career from start to finish. Thank you, Cena.